The Miami Dolphins are set to hit the road for Cleveland, Ohio, in a matchup against the Browns on Sunday. We're taking one last look at this matchup and giving some bold predictions here on Locked on Dolphins.
You are Locked on Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked on Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked on Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked on Dolphins, co-host of Locked on NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, and the NFL draft lead for the 33rd team. I want to give a thank you and welcome to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked on Network. And if you're not an everydayer, welcome to the program as we get ready for Week 17. Crossover Thursday last night with Locked on Browns. Today we give our final predictions, score prediction, injury head count for both teams, and that's coming your way here today on the show. Today's episode of Locked on Dolphins is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked on NFL for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? It's game time. It will not be game time on Sunday for a number of important pieces for both sides of this matchup. The Browns announced, Kevin Stefanski did before the game or before Friday practice, that David Njoku, Cedric Tillman, two of the better skill players that the Cleveland Browns have at their disposal, they will not play in this game. And Agbo Okoronkwo, one of the team's talented pass rushers, is not going to suit up either. Jameis Winston will be questionable with a right shoulder injury. He will be the backup if he is able to dress for the game, as Kevin Stefanski confirmed that Dorian Thompson-Robinson will start again this week for the Browns against the Dolphins. So that's the Cleveland side of the fence, and it's relatively good news for Miami when you consider just how punchless this team has kind of looked, if we're being honest, with Dorian Thompson-Robinson at the helm. And obviously a 3-12 football team has had its fair share of hardship. They've got 18 touchdown passes and 20 interceptions thrown this season, and now you've got a second-year quarterback that only has a handful of career starts and has struggled this year. He's thrown 5 interceptions to no touchdown passes in 5 game appearances and 68 pass attempts, and he's barely completing 50% of his passes. And he doesn't have Cedric Tillman. He doesn't have David Njoku. So the writing's kind of on the wall as far as what this means for Cleveland offensively. They're going to have to run the ball to have success in this game against Miami. For the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel spoke to the media. I'm recording this just before the injury reports are formally dropping, but Mike McDaniel did share a number of players who will not participate in this game. Anthony Walker at linebacker is one. He will not dress with what he is dealing with, a knee injury that has sprung up this week. And then the other one being Kendall Fuller, who Mike McDaniel described as earlier in the week as a week-to-week. There's a lot of weeks left, so that's not a very promising omen for seeing Kendall Fuller again this season. But Anthony Walker and Kendall Fuller ruled out for this contest. Some other names that have been banged up for Miami: Jaylen Waddle will be questionable. Jordan Brooks, Mike McDaniel said he was very optimistic for. Jordan Poyer practiced on Friday after being a non-participant with a knee and a finger. And Mike McDaniel kind of alluded to some optimism there in that regard as well. So from an injury head count perspective, if the Dolphins end up getting Jaylen Waddle back and they keep Jordan Brooks out on the field, you'll miss Kendall Fuller when the alternative is Storm Duck. You'll miss Anthony Walker, although Tyrell Dotson, if he gets the nod and starts over Duke Riley, I think there's a chance for that to be close to a break even as far as a physical skill set perspective. I don't think there's any question that Walker's a more refined player mentally at this stage of his career as a long-term veteran, and Dotson's more of a young player. But this also goes without saying that the players that the Dolphins have, like Bradley Chubb, who the team opted not to activate after his activation window expired on Wednesday. So all things considered, Miami getting some fortunate draws here as it pertains to David Njoku in particular, who I think has a chance to be a really big problem for the Dolphins to have to solve. When you can match Jalen Ramsey with Jerry Jeudy, and then the rest of the trickle-down effect from a target perspective, Njoku had 97 targets. He's number 2 on the team. He's got 5 receiving touchdowns this year. That's number 1 on the team. Not having that player at your disposal if you're Cleveland trying to win this game with a young quarterback, that pushes Jordan Akins up on the depth chart, formerly of the Houston Texans, formerly of UCF at the college level, gifted athlete, but not the player that David Njoku is. And then obviously Cleveland doesn't have Nick Chubb, who broke his foot, so it's Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, who's a pick for the Patriots a couple of years ago in the mid-rounds, and they got traded to the Browns. This offensive group for Miami, or for Cleveland against Miami, you should set your expectations very high for what this is going to look like for the Dolphins defense against the Browns offense. And that is kind of embodied with what it's looked like for the Browns the last couple of weeks. They scored 6 points against the Bengals. They scored 7 points against the Chiefs. They scored 14 points against the Steelers. They had an outburst of 32 points against the Broncos. But 24, 14, 10, there's only been a handful of occasions this season, 1, 2, 3 times they've scored more than 20 points in a game. And that was with the starter, Deshaun Watson, who the entire offense was tailored for. That was with Jameis Winston. And now, obviously, Dorian Thompson-Robinson as a player who enters this game for the Browns with 1 career touchdown pass to 9 interceptions and 3.9 yards per attempt and a career 53% completion percentage. Set your expectations accordingly for this football game, because I will. We're going to get into offensive and defensive predictions. And we'll get into the Dolphins defense against this Browns offense at the end of the show before we give the final score prediction. But we're going to go to the offensive side of the ball, look at the matchups that exist here in this game, and make some bold predictions for Dolphins versus Browns. That's coming your way next. Make sure you guys stick with us. If you're thinking about going to the game on Sunday, or perhaps you want to go to MetLife and be a part of the Dolphins fan base that shows up there in New York every year, and it's a very strong representation. Think about getting your tickets through Game Time. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets. They have all-in pricing. You can toggle this on and see all of the cost. No surprise fees when you put the tickets into your cart on Game Time. You can get a panoramic view of your seat before you buy, and with just a few taps, you can get your tickets delivered directly to your phone. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. So, offensive predictions against the Browns. This is a Browns defense that has plenty of talent at their disposal, and they are well represented in some ways, shapes, and forms. But one thing they have not done well this season is turned the ball over. They have had 2 turnovers in the last 3 games. They started the season before the bye in their first 9 games with 5 turnovers in 9 games. That came in bunches a little bit. They got turnovers against Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback. They got multiple turnovers against the Saints and the Giants. Those are the 3 of the 4 games this year that the Browns have created. Multiple turnovers have come against the Giants, the Saints, and a rookie quarterback in the Broncos. And the game against the Broncos, they gave up 41 points and 400 yards offense. So you're just saying, oh, I know, by the way, the 4th game was the Commanders against another rookie quarterback, and they gave up 34 points and 434 yards offense. So the rush defense has been a problem for Cleveland. So much so that you have to go back to week 9 against the Chargers to the last time that somebody has not rushed for 100 yards as a team at minimum against the Browns. And the only time this season that any team has failed to score or failed to log more than 95 yards rushing was week 7 against the Bengals. That was 59 yards and 223 yards of offense. They still lost the game because they turned the ball over twice and didn't get any turnovers on the Bengals. So the first thing that I'm going to go to for a bold prediction in this contest is that the Dolphins are going to have 1 or no turnovers in this football game offensively. It sounds like you're getting potentially Jaylen Waddle back. This is a team with Jim Schwartz that likes to play man coverage. They like to be aggressive up front. They do like to send pressure at times. All of that blends together with, if you're going to have the full complement of Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, Jonnu Smith, Devon Achane, you're going to have a lot of weapons that can create some space early. And I think that's going to benefit the Dolphins to avoid being under duress and having bad decisions that get them caught. The next thing that I would say from a bold prediction standpoint, and I'm probably going to regret this one, but I'm going to say it anyway. The Dolphins will go for 150 again or more on the ground, where you consider the track record of what Cleveland has done rush defense-wise all season long. Just look at the last, since their bye. They had a Week 10 bye. They've gave up 116 to the Bengals, who can't run the ball to save their life. Kansas City ran for 132. The Steelers ran for 120. The Broncos ran for 106. The Steelers ran for 120 again, and the Saints ran for 214. The Browns have played some teams that really struggle to run the ball, and they've ran the ball against the Browns. So I think Miami coming in, sounds like they're going to have the full complement of offensive tackles at their disposal. Not sure who is going to get the right guard spot. Mike McDaniel left it open to potentially platooning again like they did with Isaiah Wynn, although perhaps not. If it were me, I would just let Isaiah take the spot. I thought the execution was significantly better on tape than what Liam Eichenberg had last week with the Dolphins winning against the 49ers. And if that's the case, you could put me down for 150 rushing in this contest offensively for Miami. Now, what does that equate to for points, right? Because the Browns are still they're 26th in scoring defense with 25 points per game allowed on average. And the last time the Browns held a team under 20 points was the snow game that they played at home against the Steelers that we talked about on the crossover with Locked On Browns. And before that, you have to go all the way back to week 2 against Jacksonville as the time before that in which they've allowed less than 20 points in a game. And with Miami, since Tua Tagovailoa's come back, this team is averaging about 27 points per game offensively. So the game total, courtesy of FanDuel, and not to go down a FanDuel ad read, if you will, but I think it's interesting. The game total for this game continues to go down as it's kind of come out that the injuries are stacking up. It's gone down another point since last night when I did the crossover with Locked On Browns. It's down to 38.5 for the game total in this game. And I'm kind of expecting Miami's going to score 24, 27, 30 points somewhere in that stratosphere. It's kind of what my expectation is for points scored, because that's what the Browns are averaging this season. That's what the Dolphins have averaged since week 8. The recipe is there for what the Browns like to do offensively. And unless you're going to successfully press all of the targets and let Myles Garrett wreck shop, I mean, the Dolphins at 6.5 point favorites in this game are one of the bigger favorites of the week. And I think it's justified. I do. When you look at where Cleveland is at and what their offense looks like. But if you think that the game's going to go under 38.5, and we think the Dolphins are going to hit near their average in points scored, you better take Dolphins minus 6.5. Because that means the Browns aren't going to score a lot of points in this football game, which I don't think the Browns are going to score a lot of points in this football game. Spoiler alert. I do think the Dolphins are going to win this game and get back to 8-8 and have a chance to go to MetLife for a chance to finish 9-8 and get all the consolation prizes and the warm and fuzzies that come with all the adversity and finishing 7-2 to start the season. But you got to win this one first. I think the Dolphins are very well positioned to do that, in large part because of the matchups defensively against Cleveland's offense. And that's what we're going to dive into next as we bring this final episode before week 17, Dolphins versus Browns, to a close. So make sure you guys stick with us. Time is your most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. Use it wisely to improve yourself Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, and many more. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever, tune in wherever. Plus, you could go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or you can just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. So I do think the Dolphins are going to win. And I think the Dolphins are going to cover 6.5 points. And I think the game total is probably going to be under 38.5 points. If you told me the final score of this game was 24-10 or 27-10 or 24-13, something in that stratosphere, I'd be buying. I think that's kind of the flow here for what the Browns have done well off it. They have not passed for more than 196 yards in the last 3 games. They have not surpassed 300 yards of offense total in the last 3 games. They've turned the ball over 12 times in the last 3 games. If you go to the last 5 games, it's 18 turnovers in the last 5 games, and at least 3 in every game play. They're not protecting the football at all. You got a young quarterback out here. I think it'd be one thing, and if Kendall Fuller can't go next week against the Jets, and you're looking at Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, and one of them is going to be drawing storm ducking coverage, then I would be looking at it and saying, well, Aaron Rodgers against storm duck, he's going to get up. He's going to throw a lot of those balls down the field. And storm duck better be ready to play. And if he's not, you have a potential blow up spot. I don't see that this week with DTR. He's a player. The Browns are trying to figure out where they are at as a team. And DTR's body of work kind of speaks for itself when you consider he is averaging 1.13 adjusted net yards per attempt for his career across 180 passing attempts in 2 seasons now. If you're not familiar with adjusted net yards per attempt, it is passing yards minus sack yards, plus a weighted value for passing touchdowns, minus a weighted value for interceptions, divided by passes attempt and time sacked. So it adjusts the net yardage per drop back and accounts for touchdown passes that might have gone for further if you didn't run out of field to play into and penalizes you for turnovers. A good number for an adjusted net yards per attempt, like a really good number, is 7. If you're below a 5, you're bad. And DTR is at 1.13 against an offensive line whose strength that they have found the last 3 weeks has been running the ball. But the bad news for Cleveland coming into this game, from my perspective, is the Dolphins have allowed one team to rush for 100 plus yards since the Indianapolis Colts loss that dropped the team to 2-4. And the Colts rushed for 155. The Patriots rushed for 151. Every team in the first 6 games the Dolphins played went at least over 100 yards. But since then, it's 82, 94, 70, 60. And it's especially notable that Zach Sealer missed Arizona and Buffalo. And since Zach Sealer came back, it's 70, 60, 86, 114, 83, 77, 81. These measures are very strong numbers. So the bold prediction that I have is I actually think DTR is going to lead the Browns in rushing. And that might be a good thing. It might be a bad thing for the Dolphins. But right now, Jerome Ford leads the team in rushing yards this season. He's averaging 5.5 yards per attempt, 543 carries on 98, or 543 yards on 98 carries this season. Nick Chubb was under 3.5. Deonta Foreman is under 3.5. DTR's averaging 7.3 yards per rush. The only back that they have that's averaging a healthy total of above 4 really is, or 3.5 really, Pierre Strong's 3.6 is Jerome Ford. And he's a player that can catch the ball out of the backfield and make some things happen. But I think that's where you lose David Njoku. You're going to try your chances with Jerry Jeudy. I just think the Dolphins are going to have a lot of answers, and they, structurally speaking, are playing very good run defense against an offensive line that's got some older guys that are late in a season. It's got a left tackle spot that's a big problem. It's got a quarterback that I don't think is going to get up to the line of scrimmage and consistently diagnose your coverages and make you pay. And all that adds up. I think a long day for the Browns offensively. So DTR, I think when you consider the Dolphins and their failure of consistently finishing plays in the backfield when they get free runners, and the fact that he has legs and can move, I think DTR is going to lead this team in rushing on Sunday. That's the bold prediction that I have. And then I think the Browns are going to log several turnovers in this game offensively. I mean, the floor is pretty low, or the bar is pretty high based on the last 5 games. 3 against the Steelers, 3 against the Broncos, 3 against the Steelers, 6 against the Chiefs, 3 against the Bengals. The Bengals defense is awful. So, and then they didn't turn the ball over against the Saints, and then they turned the ball over 3 times in the game before their bye against the Chargers. So that's 6 out of the last 7 games, at least 3 turnovers for Cleveland. And they're definitely an evaluation window, and they don't have some of their best players. So all things considered, I think the Dolphins are going to turn the ball over once or no times. I think the Dolphins are going to rush for 150 again on the ground as a team. I think the Dolphins are going to win this game and cover the 6.5-point spread. I think they're going to win by multiple touchdowns. Give me 14. 13.5. I take the over on 13.5. I think they win by 14 points. I think the Browns are going to turn the ball over at least 3 times. Would that be a season high for the Dolphins for turnovers in a game? Because that makes it the bold prediction. Yeah, the Dolphins have not had more than 2 turnovers in a game once this season. Give me 3 turnovers for the Dolphins defense. And the Dolphins coming home at 8-8 with a chance to go to New York and put the Jets out of their misery and go from there and see what kind of breaks you get. The last prediction I'll give you is this. I think the Dolphins are going to have life in Week 18. I think somebody's going to lose tomorrow because you have the Broncos and the Chargers both independently playing. The Chargers are playing the Patriots. The Broncos are playing the Bengals. I think at least one of those teams loses and leaves the door open for Miami going into Week 18 to have something big to play for. Let's hope so. Just for the drama. And because I for one, I thoroughly love all of the negativity that pours through the comments about what's the point? They get smoked as the 7 seed, probably. And I hope complaining about it on my channel makes you all feel better about it, because I don't feel great about where the team's at either. But we gotta love the one we're with right now. We're Dolphins fans. They're playing games, and I don't think anything's going to change about the outlook of the team, whether they arbitrarily make the postseason this year or not. So I have fingers crossed. Give me some meaningful football in Week 18. It wouldn't be a bad consolation prize for what has been a rotten season thus far for the Miami Dolphins. But there's my predictions for the game. You guys have the injury head count. You have all that to look forward to. I'm Kyle Krabs. You can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys, as always, for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. I'm out of here. Go Fins. I'll talk to you after the game on Sunday.